Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Thank you for joining me on this very Merry Christmas Eve. Up next, in just a few, brought to you by Revere Securities, we have our My Healthy Minutes segment, and we're featuring returning guest Dr. David Rankin, founder of Aquaplastic Surgery in Jupiter and Miami, Florida. And he's also the chief of plastic surgery at St. Mary's Medical Center in West Palm Beach, Florida. Dr. Rankin has been in practice for over 20 years. Recently, he has become well known in the BII community. That's breast implant illness. And interestingly enough, he stopped implanting women close to 5 years ago to focus solely on explanting procedures. Today, we're chatting about breast implant illness with Nikki Giavasis. She's an entrepreneur, an author, and a mega influencer who recently explanted her breast implants with the amazing Dr. Rankin himself. I am happy to have connected them. Today, we're chatting all about BII, Nikki's harrowing experience with her breast implants, and how Dr. Rankin saved her declining health. Also, a big shout out to Susanna Demooney, who introduced David Rankin to this platform. Now, what is breast implant illness? Well, for some, having their chest augmented is a dream come true. But for others, that dream slowly becomes a nightmare in the form of a mysterious sickness dubbed as breast implant illness, BII. Back in October of 2021, federal regulators placed a so-called black box warning on breast implant packaging. The tale of Big Pharma is not a new one, my friends. Danica Patrick was supremely fit during her time in racing, competing in top drawer series such as the Cup Series. In her ambition to be the best, Danica followed a very healthy diet coupled with a lot of exercise. There's no surprise that many regarded her as one of the hottest sports persons when Swimsuit magazine featured her on their cover page. In an interview earlier this year, she admitted that her decision to get breast implants ended up backfiring as she suffered from breast implant illness. Suffering from terrible symptoms such as stubborn weight gain, unexplained hair loss, fatigue, hormonal imbalances, and high metal toxicity in her blood. And after a long ordeal, she finally decided to get the implants removed. And surprise, surprise, the symptoms reversed. Here to chat BII, a firsthand experience, is the amazing Nikki Giavasis herself and my good friend, Dr. David Rankin. Welcome to the show, dear friend.
Thanks so much. Nice to see you, Zen. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, nice to see you.
You too.
All right, guys. Nikki, I'm going to start with you. When did you first get your implants? Okay, that's one. When did you realize that they were the root cause of all your inexplicable symptoms? And what were these persistent symptoms all about?
Oh, wow. I implanted it 2 years ago, and the symptoms started pretty quickly. Within a few months, I started feeling the effects. I thought it was other things. I tried to get to the root of what the problem was, and it just turned out that this was the problem, because as soon as I explanted, I felt completely back to my health and vitality.
And what kind of symptoms were you having?
I had brain fog. I had a lot of memory loss. I had dizziness. I had sensitivities, like all kinds of sensitivities to food. I would feel very weak, but I couldn't, there was no explanation for why I felt so weak. And what else?
Well, listen,
a lot of inflammation. I was really
a lot of inflammation.
Yeah.
So about 400,000 women in the United States get breast implants every year, 300,000 for cosmetic reasons, and about 100,000 for reconstruction after mastectomy is performed to treat or prevent breast cancer. So this is serious because all kinds of women in different health situations are getting breast implants. Dr. Rankin, so what exactly is in these implants that may be making some women very sick? And is it all implants across the board? And in your point of view, how common is BII, or is it hogwash?
Well, it's definitely a reality. The statistics, we don't really know 100% yet how many women develop it. There are certainly women that have breast implants that go through many years and don't have symptoms and don't have problems. But then there's the subset of women we're trying to figure out what percentage that is that do develop symptoms, some quite debilitating, others more mild. So I think further study and the more patients that explant will be able to determine the actual percentages of women that are developing breast implant illness.
Yeah, and the term breast implant illness is both controversial and still very poorly understood. There are actually, to your point, no diagnostic tests or diagnostic criteria, and many doctors cite, medical literature that says there is no straight line connection between the symptoms women are experiencing and their implants. So it feels like people are either stuck between, people are stuck between a rock and a hard place with really no explanations. Nikki, after you explanted, Dr. David Rankin performed the surgery not long ago, actually. How long until you saw a reverse effect?
It was pretty quick. Within the first week, I started feeling the effects and seeing the difference, probably the first day. But within a couple weeks, I felt like myself again. When I first woke up, I started to feel like the fog was lifted. My skin was kind of shining again. I didn't have like such a dull cloud over everything. And every week, the vitality came back, the energy came back. Now I have energy all the time. I don't need to have like caffeine or anything else. Like I sleep well at night and I have energy all day. So each week has progressively been more vitality and just being myself again.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that. And I'm happy to hear that you're finally getting back on the right health track. In October of 2021, last year, I mentioned this earlier, but the FDA issued a black box warning on a number of implants and changed their screening recommendations for identifying ruptures and required that physicians provide patients with a decision checklist of sorts to ensure that they are aware of the risks. But without manufacturer data, much about breast implant illness remains unknown. And that means informed decision making for people pursuing implants and some semblance of peace for those still living with them. It's difficult to achieve. Surgeons should really be reviewing this warning more carefully with their patients. I mean, it could be a matter of life and death. Dr. Rankin, 1/3 of women who have breast implant surgery are going to experience breast pain, sensitivity, or loss of sensitivity in the breast or asymmetry. Half are going to experience a painful tightening of scar tissue around the implant, and 1/3 will have implants that rupture or leak. Nearly 60% are going to need a repeat operation. Are these statistics that we are hearing in fact true? And then secondly, what is the worst case of BII you have seen? Are the side effects permanent, and how long until all the negatives reverse?
Well, as far as the worst case that I've seen a lot of patients that are bedridden, have severe medical issues, and everything else has been ruled out. They've been to specialist after specialist, and no one can really diagnose them with anything. And lo and behold, their final option is to remove their implants, and many of them do recover and recover quite well. Is it permanent? I think that there's a spectrum of how women recover. Some women get their health 100% back, and other get 10, 20, 30% back, and everything in between. In my practice, I would say 85% of my patients who explant do feel better and healthier after explanting. So it's a big number. It's a real number for sure. I forgot what was the first part of that you asked me, Zen.
Well, it was just, there was so many, the repeat operations, nearly 60% will need a repeat operation. I felt like that statistic was kind of mind boggling.
Well, yeah, so that's another factor. So aside from breast implant illness, there are potential complications and adverse reactions to implants. Capsular contracture, you mentioned, where the scar tissue contracture on the implant distorts the breast, which can cause pain. It can cause distortion of the breast, requiring another operation. You can have rupture of the implant, whether it be saline, whether it be silicone. There's different manufacturers have different rates of rupture. So these are all things that definitely need to be told to the patient prior to considering an implantation, and they just need to be aware of the potential complications that they may develop.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you should take a black box warning seriously. The FDA doesn't just place black box warnings for no reason. So I think it's escalated to a point where the public now needs to know that, implant at your own risk, so to speak. Nikki, two things. What advice do you have to women considering breast implants? And what advice do you have to women feeling like they are losing their minds after breast implant symptoms arise?
One thing I've been advising people since I did it, because I did get to leave with the implants and I have them here, but I think you should actually be able to try them on and feel the weight, because the weight is very significant and you don't know until you wake up and you have that weight and you're dealing with all kinds of other problems. So maybe you don't have BII, but you do have a lot of pain from the weight of it. So I think there should be more precaution into trying the things on and knowing what you're getting into and knowing the risks versus just thinking that it's something aesthetic.
That's
And
ver yeah. It's not aesthetic. It's not just aesthetic, and it comes with a lot of complications.
yeah.
Dr. Rankin, what advice do you have for women who have no symptoms, have implants for quite some time, over a decade, and even maybe feeling like this may be all, nonsense?
Well, I think if a woman has saline implants and likes the way they look and is not experiencing any symptoms, they can simply just monitor their health. If you have a silicone implant, it's different though, particularly now with the FDA's changes in recommendations. They're recommending an MRI for all patients with silicone implants at years 3 to 5, and then every 2 to 3 years after that, either an MRI or an ultrasound to determine whether there's a rupture. With silicone, you can have a ruptured implant and really have no idea and be walking around with that in your body.
That's staggering, because a vast majority of patients, when you look at this, they tolerate breast implants just fine, silicone and saline, but now there's this lingering risk that has not really been talked about. And like you said, patients who have ruled out all of their possibilities of cause of their symptoms with their primary care physicians and specialists, or those who simply wish not to have their implants any longer, can seek out an explant. But the underlying and the hidden danger, I believe, is in that silicone implant that's dormant, that has not really caused you any concern or symptoms, and it's slowly leaking and or could be completely poisoning your body from the inside, from the inside out, so to speak. Operating on Nikki, you have a 3-year waiting list. You've operated on a lot of different bodies, women, ages, throughout your years. If you hit a point where you stopped implanting, was it because you wanted to focus on the explant portion of your career, or is it because you truly believe this is making women sick and you just don't want to be part of it anymore?
Well, it's both. I definitely wanted to focus on explanting because I just saw the outcomes of my patients. They feel better. It's changing their life. Their health is improved. So I thought it would be kind of hypocritical for me to be helping these women and then causing potential problems by putting in implants at the same time. So that's why I chose to focus my practice on that.
I love it. That's such a great answer. And I love that you stand by your word. And I love that you stopped implanting altogether and focusing on this. Nikki, you are here on the platform on this sweet Saturday night, 9 p.m. Christmas Eve with Dr. Rankin. What do you want to tell this man who helped you get your health back?
Oh my goodness. I'm just so grateful. Now I have the full vitality and the energy to be a great mother, to be a great grandmother. And I feel like I got a new lease on life. So I don't want to cry, but I'm so emotional because I wasn't me, and now I'm me again. So there's no way to put into words how grateful I am for how I feel.
Awesome. I'm very, very happy for you.
Thank you.
What an incredible segment. We are out of time, my friends. Thank you so much for coming on, spending the evening with me, chatting with me, and really spreading such great edutainment and information for women out there that are listening, that are thinking they're losing their minds, that they're having crazy symptoms, or even women who are just weighing the option to get these implants or not. Sometimes it's not worth the risk, guys. Thank you so much for coming on, dear friends.
Thank you for having me.
Guys, do check out the amazing Nikki Giavasis on the gram at Nikki Giavasis Official. You definitely can find Dr. Rankin directly on their website at aquaplasticsurgery.com and on the gram at Aquaplastic Surgery. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. That was my Healthy Minutes segment brought to you by Revere Securities. We'll be right back after this.